What's going on? Hope you are well. Today I want to tell you about one of the best men I ever knew, and to a video that I shot a few weeks back talking about telling things to people that you love before it's too late. This is someone in my life that I did not get to tell that to because I waited too late. And hopefully, I'm going to assume that they knew, but honestly, I don't think this person could have fully understood the impact that they had on my life had I not told them. So I really think they probably didn't know. And this person is an uncle of mine. His name was Walter, but we all called him Moose because, funnily enough, my great uncle or something like that, my grandmother's brother, Guy, he was like the resident family drunk, essentially. Went to tell my Uncle Walter that he was strong as an ox, but he messed it up and he said he was strong as a moose instead. And so the name Moose stuck, and Moose had a big stature about him. He was 6'3", 6'4", big boned, big guy, not buff, but just big. He was big. He was big as a moose, very stocky. And I grew up in the house that he was in, because he stayed behind. Of all the children that my grandmother had, he stayed behind and helped take care of her after her husband passed away before I was ever born. So her eldest son never got married, just seemingly dedicated his life to working, taking care of things that needed taken care of within the family, taking care of his mother. He kind of became the man of the house at a young age, and that never really left him. He never really moved on beyond that. And when I was growing up, I started living there. Well, you don't know, but I started living there when I was 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, going into kindergarten. And he was just a fixture. He did what needed to be done around the house. He took care of things. He loved his Vanderbilt Commodores basketball. He'd go to a bunch of games for college basketball and watch them. He'd travel all over the United States and out to Hawaii to watch them play. He was pretty stoic. He didn't talk a lot. He definitely never spent leisure time with us, throwing around baseball or, throwing football or anything like that. It's not something he ever really did with me. But what he did do was set a really, really good example for what I thought life should look like, in that he lived a life of peace. He lived a life of contentment. He lived a life of work, but also balancing that with his personal life and the things he was interested in. And so much of the way that we all operate in our day-to-day lives, is that we're always chasing something, some level of success or metric of success, or, money or relationship or this, that, and the other, things, stuff, whatever it may be. And I never really saw him live that way. And I think that's always had a profound impression on me, in that I'm a big stuff guy. I like stuff as much as anybody. I love setting goals. I love accomplishing those goals. But what he taught me, and it wasn't until after he passed away that I really realized the impact he had on my life, because it was a bit of a sudden passing. He had heart problems his whole life, and he eventually passed away on vacation with his with sisters and nephews, things like that. I wasn't on the trip, but he ended up just going to sleep one night, not waking up due to heart complications in his early 60s, gone far too young, but he left a mark on the family. And for me, specifically, the mark he left was living by example, living by the example that you want to convey to others. So not necessarily doing everything that pleases you, but having principles, having morals, having a personal code that you're going to live by. And I never heard him say a bad word about anybody. The worst he ever did, period, was when I would smart off and being a punk kid. I'd smart off to my sister or my grandmother. I would be disrespectful to the women in the house because I was a teenager. And he would always drive with his elbow up on the windowsill and his hand on the steering wheel, and his right hand was on the passenger side headrest. And I would always sit in the front passenger seat because I get terrible car sickness if I'm not driving. So I had to sit up there. My grandmother sat behind me and my sister sat behind him. And that's how we always drove. And the worst that the most he ever got riled up is if we were driving along, he'd be driving and I'd be turned around smarting off to my sister or my grandmother, and he'd just pop me up, just give me a little pop in the back of the head and tell me to hush and tell me to be respectful to the women in my life. And that was as riled up as he ever got. But I think what he taught me, it wasn't so much verbal, it was just through the way in which he lived his life. He did such a good job of living and leading by example. And I remember at his funeral, there were so many people. There was everybody from coworkers and church people, and the local drug dealer and all kinds of stuff. All the different people by the local drug dealer thing. It's just somebody in the community that he knew because he was in the community and all that stuff. And he just so happened to cross paths with this person and made an impact on their life, And he was not a man of a lot of words. So I think that left a really big impression on me. And it's something that I take with me pretty much every day. And I never got to tell him that. But I hope somewhere deep down he knew it, because what he provided me with was almost like a compass or a barometer of how I'm living, how I want to be living, the impression I want to leave on people, and then I act into those things. I behave in such a way that is representative of those things, rather than just going on every whim and fancy that I have. So with that said, I'm drinking a little bit of Southern Collective. This is a cigar batch blend that they did, if I can get it to focus here, Churchill. And the reason I'm drinking this is because, first off, I just got it, and I love this bottle. But Winston Churchill was kind of a larger-than-life character, even though he was fairly small in stature. My Uncle Moose was big in stature, and Churchill's legacy being so big, it just kind of reminds me of the actual physical form of my uncle. So this is a bourbon blend that's been finished in grape wine barrels and Amburana barrels. I typically hate Amburana, but this one right here is actually so lightly finished and well done. It just actually adds something to the mix. And it is really, really good. So, cheers to my Uncle Moose. Cheers to you. Man, you only get the Amburana cinnamon flavor, more like a cinnamon roll, along with just this nice spice, get the sweetness from the bourbon and the great barrel finishing. Fantastic. Southern Collective, by the way, is fantastic. If you're ever in Nashville, Tennessee, you owe it to yourself to stop by Southern Collective. One of the best places you will go by. But yeah, cheers to my Uncle Moose. Cheers to his memory. Cheers to living a life that is going to leave an impression on the people around you when you're gone. I don't think that there's anything more admirable that any of us can do than that here, just living our life as human beings. So cheers to that. Hope you have a great week. We're a little over a week away from Christmas. I'll probably do one more of these next week, and then I'll probably take off in between, but I might not. It just depends on how I'm feeling. So we shall see. But thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you watching. Cheers. Have a great week.